So, Forward fans, welcome to a very special episode of Fourth and Frames, the other IDP edition, I should say, the other fantasy football podcast here at fantasyframes.com. As you all know, every week we are covering the world of individual defensive player fantasy football with two of the best out there, Mr. Nate Markham, Mr. Mike Wohlert. We'll start with you, Mike. How are you doing? Loving your work over at 444. If you're not following, subscribe for 444 Fantasy Football and follow all of his IDP work. You can also follow him on Twitter at Mike_Wohlert. So, how you doing?
I don't know. Cleveland. Apparently, we can't have nice things here in Cleveland because it took 2 years for everything to unravel. So,
hey, what happened today? Did Beckham's dad put out another thing?
I don't know.
I guessed at him yesterday, but I thought I saw something today.
It sounded like he doubled down. I couldn't really see what happened, but basically, what I think is going to happen is they're basically just going to pay him to stay at home and not cut him. I don't think they're going to cut him.
Right.
I don't know, but basically they're sending him home. And
shocking. Odell Beckham is a problem. Never heard of that before.
I would totally, even in hindsight, I would still totally make that trade again. It just stinks that it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And Aditi Kinkhabwala, who one, I love her name.
Oh yeah.
Two, she is awesome. She actually did. I caught a video. You might be able to catch it. And she basically told another side to the story. Is basically they run a specific offense and it's precise and you have to be in a spot. And even if Odell was open, that necessarily isn't his spot or where he needs to be or things like that. So there's a whole other side that she reported to the offense. So it's just not as clear as that 11-minute video with Beckham completely wide open. I mean, obviously it looks bad, but there's a completely separate two sides to every story. So she reported on that, which was really good to see. But I've seen the offense. I've seen the offense with Baker and with Odell, and with Baker and without Odell. And I got to tell you, without Odell, it's better. So
yeah, no, so last night.
So I'm good with him going away. So
no, last night. Tyler Heil, one of our writers here at Fantasy Frames, he was putting out the stats for Baker Mayfield, and he's by far and away better when Beckham is not there on the field. It is a difficult time for Browns fans. I'll agree.
I'm all right. We're 4-4, so you know what?
We're not out of it.
Slate. We're not out of it. It's just we're gonna move on. And everybody's asking me, well, who's the wide receiver to own? I'm like, you know what? At this point. I mean, at this point, it's just Jarvis Landry, but it's just such an offense that is so precise. Baker spreads the ball around, and it's still centered around Nick Chubb and when Kareem Hunt gets back. So,
right.
I don't. It's not a wide receiver dominant offense.
All right.
No, anyway. It's not, and it's been tight end running back focus, and I don't think that's going to change any. I mean, clearly, I think that you go back to week one when Anthony Schwartz probably had his best week. When both were kind of reeling a little bit. Again, putting your eggs in the Anthony Schwartz or DPJ's basket is not exactly something that we want to do. But all right, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing well. Feels like I like doing breaking up into 2 nights. I'm not going to complain. It gives me a little refresher to kind of get loose a little.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. Maybe we can talk everyone into. Maybe I think that's what we originally were starting off at, and then I was like, I think let's condense everything into one night. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how this goes.
Keep the fans guessing. Don't tell them which day you're going to come on.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just spring it on you in the middle of the afternoon, and we know you'll show up, and we appreciate that.
Exactly.
So before we get into prime matchups as we do every week, and then our Oklahoma drill session where we have analysts against analysts, and then the one analyst who's not participating is the judge. And then we're going to tell you which player we think we should start. Before we get into all that, let's get into some news and notes, injuries, all that jazz. Nate, what do you got for us?
Man, there's a lot of updates as far as practice, limited practice, full practice, did not practice updates. And with Wednesday and even partially to Thursday, a lot of Veterans Days still where you take it kind of with a grain of salt. But as we were talking earlier, obviously Jalen Smith, the experience in Green Bay didn't last too long.
Good Lord. No,
I mean, man.
Did he see the field? I don't even know if
he played a handful of snaps, and when he played, he was basically put in a blender all the time for every play, it seemed.
Good Lord.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I'm not knocking, the linebackers in Green Bay, especially not Devondre Campbell. But the rest of them, you would think that it's a telling sign if he's not able to sniff the field there. I think his time's probably maybe someone will scoop him up, but I can't imagine too many teams are going to be hollering for his services.
Right.
Worst news on the week is Danielle Hunter suffered a torn pectoral muscle. He's out for the season. Significant loss for Minnesota. Probably maybe a positive for their passing game. Maybe that's a boom for Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, because they might have to play from behind a little bit more if the defense continues to lose pieces here and there. But
hey, Tyler Conklin, he looked pretty good at the tight end position for the past couple of weeks for the Vikings. Maybe he's the second coming of Irv Smith. All right, maybe not.
Oh, watch out!
Don't come at me, Vikings fans. I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm just kidding.
He's been pretty good though. And then in your neck of the woods, Jorge Montez Sweat suffered. When I saw this, he had a broken jaw. I thought, oh man, I thought it was something in practice. Someone punched him, broke his jaw, and it was going to be one of those things. To find out that he played through it. Don't know when it happened in the game last week.
Right.
But I mean, to play one snap with a broken jaw is pretty impressive altogether. That team just can't catch a break with some of the injuries and some of the lack of production on that defensive line. That so much talent, just I can't.
They have been the most. They have, from a team defense perspective, in my opinion, and I'm not just saying this because I'm biased. They have been the biggest defensive disappointment with all the hype that they had coming with them into the season this year. So it sucks.
And then last but not least, as far as significant news, as far as the rest of the season, is Kari Willis is out, been placed on IR. I don't know if it's the rest of the season though, Mike. I think that's he could, I guess, return.
I want to say it's a 3-gamer, but
that's
yeah,
what I'm thinking. I didn't look too far into it, unfortunately. I'm sorry, I don't have that exact. Jorge gives me the news and notes section, and I don't even come prepared. But I know he's on the IR, and Julian Blackman's out already as well, and so Andrew Sendejo. I'm guessing exactly.
I did not like that. I did not like that experiment in Cleveland. That's basically Indianapolis's version of Daniel Sorensen.
My God, and I
when Nate is ripping Daniel Sorensen on Twitter, it's gotten so bad.
I was abusing before even this past game, but I swear I'm at work and I literally turn on just to see. I work late on Mondays and I check it out just as I'm getting ready to leave to go home. I was like, all right, I'm gonna check the play real fast. And the first play is play action deep over the middle, and I see Sorensen lined up, and I thought, oh man, what can he do? Oh, he can grab him around the shoulder and rip him to the ground. Perfect.
And still allow the catch.
Still allow the catch. Exactly. I was like, oh my gosh. And then he gets burnt again. And yeah, it's bad. How they didn't make a move for a safety at the deadline is beyond me. Mike, we haven't had a chance to talk how kind of boring deadline for the most part.
Yeah. I think the big trade was
Vaughn.
That's
a bit of a surprise. I was not prepared for
Charles Omenihu.
That's the one I was going to say. Omenihu to San Francisco.
I like Omenihu though.
I do too.
I think moving Armstead into the middle really will help that defense all around, because I think he's much better against interior linemen than he is.
Yeah, he's not an edge rusher. I think kind of like Chris Jones.
Right, exactly. And we'll talk about Chris Jones as far as with the Chiefs and everything, but yeah, pretty significant. I mean, he led the Texans in pressures and I think was second in hurries. So he can get to the quarterback. Opposite Bosa should be helpful. Getting some of the pieces back in San Francisco, like Kittle, et cetera, should be. Maybe Brandon Ayuk starting to come around. Maybe San Francisco could turn
don't give people faith. Don't.
I'm going to.
Yeah, it's like the scene. It's like the scene in Endgame when Black Widow.
To Hawkeye.
Don't give me hope.
Don't give me hope. Sorry, he didn't give it to you sooner.
I am going to give hope. That's what I am. I'm a hopeful individual. What I'm not hopeful about. Yeah, I am hopeful that in the Denver and Dallas game that Randy Gregory is going to have a monster week. No Garrett Bowles. So I think that Gregory, who's already been a beast, is going to have another solid week. Trayvon Diggs, the anti-jinx didn't rub off on me, Mike. My bust last week worked. Unfortunately, I didn't have Trayvon Diggs far enough down my defensive back rankings to pay dividends off of it.
I'm on 4 weeks straight, man.
You are on fire. I can't wait.
This should be tweeted out every day after we record. Just reverse jinx of the week.
Mike called this guy a bust, so get him in your lineup.
The worst part is you want to do it, but I don't want to fade because your process is solid. It's just weird happenstance that it works that way. And so I never want to fade a person just because I always trust the process and I trust your process. And so it's hard. As soon as the first week that I try to do it out of jokes is when they actually will blow up and or bust completely. It is what it is.
I think my bust last week was Logan Wilson, right?
Yeah.
I called him more of an LB3.
And he almost was the LB3 overall.
Almost, right. Yeah. I was like, don't expect big numbers. The Jets are the Jets, and it's
now.
It's not. I'm
no
looking at like halftime. He's got like 8 or 9 tackles. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
There's no way you knew that the Jets would actually be able to move the chains and have the ball as much as they did to warrant that. Unbelievable.
It's becoming comical now.
It really kind of is. I want to speed through these just to get to them so I know what to do. Everybody in New York has COVID, including going through protocols. Xavier McKinney's one of them. Pay attention to COVID protocols, of course, there. In New England, J.C. Jackson is battling an illness right now. It's not COVID related, but he is under the weather. Pay attention with that because obviously that can have some direct effect on the Carolina pass catchers. Cleveland and Cincy. Cleveland again has a who's who of list, unfortunately, with not necessarily as much on the defensive side. On a positive note, looks like Denzel Ward got a limited practice in today, so he's trending in the right direction. And opposite that, for all the Cleveland pass rushers and at least defensive tackle in the middle, Trey Hopkins probably is out the center for the Bengals, so that's a positive note. See, optimism, positivity, moving forward.
He's trying. All right,
I am trying.
He's trying.
Yeah. Really, the Christian Kirksey didn't practice. I don't know if that's just a time to let the thumb kind of get healed. We'll have to pay attention to that. Jerome Baker
he played with a rap or a club last week, so he played every snap. But what was interesting, Texans claimed or signed Eric Wilson.
They did. You're right.
So I don't know if that maybe they're gonna sit Kirksey. I don't think so. I think it's more of.
You think Grugier Hill might see?
Maybe Camus, maybe
yeah.
Grugier Hill, but I'm still, you might again. Cunningham is not being resurrected this year.
No.
I thought they were going to move him, to be honest with you.
I did too. No one's going to pick up his contract. His contract is ungodly too.
Right. Yeah. And again, another player exonerated or that's the right word. I don't know.
Go
moved, whatever.
Go with it.
From a terrible team, terrible linebacking core. If you can't cut it at linebacker in Philly, you're in trouble. But I will talk about a specific linebacker in Philly in a little bit. Tune in. Jerome Baker got in a limited practice. Brandon Jones did as well, which I think is beneficial. I like Brandon Jones at safety. He's making plays. I consistently see him being more involved around the ball week in and week out. In Buffalo, nothing really. Mario Addison got a Veterans Day. Malcolm Jenkins didn't practice today. That's newsworthy, I guess, in New Orleans.
Indeed. Absolutely.
And then Drew Tranquil got a full practice in, which is positive. Fletcher Cox didn't practice today. I don't know if it's just a Veterans Day. Mike, Jorge, did you guys see that they were trying to move
him?
Fletcher Cox
at the
trade deadline?
Mm-hmm. All sorts of, I mean.
What the hell's up with that?
I don't know. There's a lot of bargain sales going on for a lot of players. And I think the news reporters are saying, okay, we're going to move look at this player to get moved. But I think that's because their name is big and they are just grasping at straws. Whereas other teams are like, you know what? We're not going to take on that financial burden for your salary, even though you have a big name. And that's why you didn't see a lot of people get moved.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Although the Von Miller thing, the
Rams are good.
Well, they're all in just like they were a couple years ago on the defensive side of the ball when they went to the Super Bowl. I think in next year they only have like 3 draft picks or something.
Yeah, they're all like 4th round.
But I mean, look who they're selling their draft picks off for.
Exactly.
I understand.
Like, and yeah, they're
proven commodities, of course.
Yeah.
They just have to be able to, I mean, they're obviously win now, and they can maintain. I love the fact that I read that McVay's kids got him a cup or a T-shirt that says "F these picks," F those picks. That's great.
That's awesome.
I love it. Staying in Philly though, here's one I want to pay attention to is Jevon Hargrave. I think it was just probably a rehab day, but that shoulder's been aggravating him. He was a non-participant yesterday and today, and so I want to follow that along because that's significant, mostly just for my affinity towards Jevon Hargrave. I really like him. And then in Green Bay, I mean, Chris Jones for KC, limited practice. Anthony Hitchens got a full practice in. Whoop-de-doo. Melvin Ingram is the news that we hadn't talked about. Melvin Ingram, I know, and your is the same reason I say that, because all I see is that means between Willie Gay's snaps are probably going to be shortened or cut down just a little bit.
I hope not. I don't know.
I agree.
I'm not a coach. I don't have a whole lot of technical experience. I'm just a guy who looks at some all 22 and just clips up some things and says, "Hey, this guy's playing pretty well. You might want to play him a little bit more." And to my amateur eye, it just seemed like the defense plays better when Bolt and Gay are on the field than when Hitchens is on the field, and even when Neiman's on the field. So
they do. Willie Gay's fast. He's good, great sideline to sideline speed. Nick Bolton's a beast. I mean, that's pretty much what you've wanted out of your linebackers for a decade, and you haven't gotten it. You've gotten grinders.
Grinders,
Neiman and Hitchens, and just they get the job done. They're physical. That's just nice way of saying they're not real athletic, and they just happen to be in the right spot, and they don't screw up bad enough, and we don't want to spend money to go get somebody big.
Right.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
They react to the ball instead of letting it just kind of come to them.
Yes, exactly. Sounds. Maybe you are a coach, because that sounds like
you got coach speak down.
You got coach speak down.
That is pretty good.
That's what it looks like. It's like, he goes and he's like, okay, I'm just gonna wait. Oh, here's the play. I'm gonna tackle. But
it is. That's you hit the nail on the head. You hit the nail on the head. If we can get out of there and move along, positive news in San Francisco. D Ford had a full practice. Again, we don't know what his snaps will look like with this rotation if he gets in, plays much. Azeez Al-Shaair got a full practice in, and then Jimmy Ward did not practice. Nothing really significant there in safety. Who's the safety that took over for Jaquiski Tart?
That's the
name. Okay, good. That's about how I pronounce it. Perfect. I'm glad it wasn't just me that just went Hufflepuff. Exactly. 2 points, Gryffindor.
Hey, when are we going to start talking about Mr. Loudermilk on this show? It's just for fun.
We shall soon. He had a past defense last week, and
how about that?
Making some news. Mike, are you familiar with Isaiah Loudermilk?
I am, Mike. I can tell you no. No,
okay.
I'm not.
You're not the only one. Nope. But it's okay.
Real quick story is we had the Fantasy and Frames IDP Best Ball Championship Draft, and it is ran through a website called RT Sports, and RT Sports is, I love them. I've been using them for years. Their IDP draft room was a little behind the times in terms of aggregate ADP, etc. And eventually it became a running joke. Gary Van Dyke was up and his pick was flying along, and then all of a sudden he couldn't find the players that should have been at the top of the list because they didn't get sorted properly. It was just a big mess. Long story short, Isaiah Loudermilk was the top of his queue, and that's who we got. And so we said, watch Gary's luck. Isaiah Loudermilk's going to make a thing. It's going to be Melvin Ingram's going to get moved, and TJ Watt's going to get hurt, and
all of these circumstances.
And Isaiah Loudermilk's going to come up and be the next Pittsburgh Steeler to steal the show. And he still hasn't yet, but he got his first whiff of splash play this past week, and Gary tweeted out for us all to pay attention. So we know Isaiah Loudermilk, we're his biggest fans right now.
I'll tell you what, I'm gonna tweet at him. I'm gonna see if I can get him to come on this show and talk some football with us. I think
nothing better than come on the show where we make fun of you for being a wasted pick that no one you were an accidental pick.
That is those are not my words there.
Yeah,
so
real rags to riches story.
Exactly.
Let me finish up on another thing to pay attention to that I have to, again, it's always hard to say when they don't release, if it's just a Veterans Day off, if it's just a rehab. Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee didn't practice. And that for me is significant, especially against the Rams if they're looking to run. If you have no Jeffrey Simmons and no Rashaan Evans and a Tennessee team that offensively is strapped, that could be a long, long day for the Titans.
I hope so.
I'm sure you do, Mr. Negative. But
well, not so much negative in a few minutes, but
you're right.
We'll get to that in a little bit.
We'll segue from all these news and notes and negative and switch right into the positives and the prime matchups of the week, where we go from defensive line to linebacker to defensive back. I'm going to start off with the defensive line and let Mike tell us his prime matchup of week 9.
So I actually haven't been paying attention to my prime matchups. If my prime matchups are actually the busts,
okay.
But either way, my prime matchup this week, I've got again, I'm going to go a little bit just because I already have it written out and I didn't have to do much research. I'm going to give a 4-for-4 freebie again. So typically what I do is I publish my waiver wire article, and then a few days later, after I do my rankings and look at some of the guys who are standing out, put up some starts, some guys that if you have these guys, you might want to start them. Matchup is looking really good. And one of those guys is Jonathan Greenert against the Dolphins this week. So a little worried that Omadihu got shipped off. So I don't know if that's going to result in maybe a little bit more attention towards Greener's way, but he should be running most of his pass rush snaps opposite Jesse Davis tackle there. Greenert, 20 plus pass rush snaps in consecutive games, 12% pass pressure rate. He's converted his pressures into sacks at just an insane rate. I think he's already got like 6 or 7 sacks already. So his conversion rate is insane. It's unsustainable, but right now he's overachieving. Still ride him out. And like I said, I like the matchup against Jesse Davis. Davis didn't allow a sack last week, but he was responsible for 8 total quarterback pressures and is still one of the worst pass protectors in the league. Greener producing a 24.3 pass rush win rate. So I do believe Greener also has a 2 or 3 sack streak going right now. So I still think he continues that streak. I actually have him as my DL 8 this week.
All right.
Nice. I will be honest. 2.5 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Jonathan Greenert was a name that just was. I was like, oh, look at the pressures. He had 6 pressures this game, and I ignored it. And then each week, he's like you said, he consistently. I'll give anybody a week to have a lucky streak, and you never know, but consistently. And in not exactly easiest matchups, too, especially when you're on a losing team and the opposition has a tendency to not have to pass as much and you're still getting the production, that's something to take notice of.
Yeah, that one game, it was like, okay. And then the second week was like the scene in Django Unchained when Leonardo DiCaprio's like, all right, you had my curiosity.
Now
you have my attention.
Exactly. That will say now the second excellent movie reference that we have worked into this show. This is shaping up to be a top-notch one. This probably is going to move to the top of the charts, I'm guessing.
I got to be honest with you. I was some way earlier going to, when talking about the Browns, or I forget who were, never mind. I just killed the story. Forget it. It's too boring. If I can work it in later, I will work it in, and you'll be impressed.
Okay.
Foreboding.
Well, nothing like my prime matchup having a segue that included Jorge botching a story and really losing the momentum of this linebacker. But the good news is, you know what? He had no momentum early in the season because he didn't have an opportunity early in the season. And what it's resulted in is that he has now had a chance while Alex Singleton has played his way out of snaps and Eric Wilson has been released and TJ Edwards is TJ Edwards. Davion Taylor has moved up and has taken on significant snaps, is in a pristine position, if you ask me, this week against the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo's the top half of the league in offensive plays. Obviously, the offensive play is going to generate direction and possibilities and potential plays and stats for Davion Taylor. With Buffalo, the one area that really paid attention to, obviously we know that Josh Allen's had his issues with the deep ball so far, so he stayed more intermediate and a little underneath. I had to dig a little bit deeper to see exactly what he's doing with his passes. And of the 289 pass attempts on the season so far, 65% of them are going to the middle, intermediate, and to the left intermediate, which just happens to be where Davion Taylor's played the majority of his snaps. Now, the ball's going to funnel his direction. I don't envision a situation where Philadelphia offensively keeps too much going against the Bills. I hope I'm wrong because I want Jalen Hurts to do well, personally speaking. Well, I mean, honestly, it's selfishly speaking, it is what it is. But I believe that this is a situation that no matter what, run versus pass, I think Davion Taylor is going to put himself in a position to have double-digit tackles. There's a chance that if he can get into position, I mean, Josh Allen's not been the most turnover-prone quarterback so far, so I'd never want to predict any type of turnover. But as a whole, I mean, if you just look at the linebackers in Philly, he has no competition, if you ask me. He's not losing snaps this week. He's only getting better. And his coverage skills are less than stellar. He's allowed 13 catches on 14 targets so far. And in IDP, as we've said for pretty much ever, sometimes it's a good thing to let the guy catch the ball when you're a linebacker because usually there's a tackle in front of you. And I think that's going to be the same case here. Is he's going to see plenty of targets his direction. He's going to allow plenty of catches, but he's going to get plenty of tackles with the hopeful for maybe, a forced fumble. And I can't speak on, let me see what his pass rush is like. I should have actually looked at this before.
It's zero.
It's zero. He has one pressure, but that's, it is what it is. So we're not counting his pass rush pedigree into this prime matchup, but I do have him as my LB. Hell. I thought I had something better like right in front of me. See, Jorge, your stupid story got me all thrown off in terms of having this pulled up, but it's okay. Davion Taylor's my LB 32, which is not real prime. I need to adjust that. I'm moving up right now.
For someone who is playing, I don't think it's that bad. I've got actually TJ Edwards at my LB 31. I actually like him a little bit better.
No, well then that means I'm moving TJ Edwards down into the 40s because he's your bust of the week. I'm just kidding. He's not. I don't know who he is, but all right, perfect. Good to know. Another 4 for 4 freebie, everybody.
Edwards. I liked Edwards last week. I don't know, they both play so much better than Alex Singleton. Both of them do.
Oh yeah.
Another guy that just gets put in a blender and allows plays to come to him instead of going to the play.
And you know what else I just did? I'm sitting there talking the whole time about Buffalo. It's the Chargers that I should have been talking about. The Chargers do all of those things when I'm mentioning pass the ball short, intermediate to the left there.
We should, hey Jorge, when Nate messes up like that, you should have like the Price is Right.
I have a better one actually, and it's actually in light of what's movies coming out in November, and that is, Nate, sometimes shit happens. Someone's got to deal with it, and who are you going to call?
Well, Ghostbusters is the answer.
Or you
got that one right.
You can contact the three of us on Twitter. That too. Whoever.
But essentially, the same thing applies.
Yeah.
Just insert Justin Herbert and the Chargers for Josh Allen and the Bills.
There you go.
Jorge, anything to improve upon that shit show?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm going to go a little bit more obvious, but maybe not somebody that you are definitely starting each week at the defensive back position. Currently in Fantasy Pros total points scored, him and his teammates are neck and neck in terms of rankings and points scored, with a ranking as a DB 27 and a DB 28. It's a safety from the Denver Broncos. And no, I'm not talking about Justin Simmons, who got that contract in the offseason, the Justin Simmons who put up 23.5 fantasy points against the Washington football team last week. Talking about Kareem Jackson. Kareem Jackson, I loved him back in Houston when he was playing corner and safety. And then all of a sudden he gets to Denver and you're thinking you're going to see more of the same, and things have kind of fallen off from expectations. But he's actually been playing pretty well in the season with 35 solo tackles and 15 assisted tackles. Dallas, who's their opponent this week, gives up the second most fantasy points per game to opposing safeties. Dallas has the third most passing yards per game. I see this game. Dak Prescott's coming back. Look what they were able to do with Cooper Rush last week, the Cowboys offense, that is. Dak Prescott's coming back. No Von Miller. He's gone now. He's with the Rams. The pass rush is probably going to, in quotes, probably not be as good as it has been previously. I see this game getting out of hand pretty quickly for the Dallas Cowboys, and then pretty much icing the game with a running game, which is great for a strong safety who plays in the box primarily. So give me Kareem Jackson this week, averaging 10.6 fantasy points per game, which, by the way, he has been pretty, in terms of fantasy output, pretty consistent in the past 4 weeks, weeks 5 through 8, 9.8, 11.5, 11.3, 9.8. Again, maybe not something that you're starting every week. Maybe you're getting, depending on your scoring settings, higher output, but definitely this week has a good matchup against Dallas.
Excellent. So way to pick up the slack from my little letdown. But, hey, good news is there's nowhere to go but up from there when I mentioned the wrong thing. So positivity speaking, we can enter into the Oklahoma drills.
I don't know what that was. What was it?
It's supposed to be a tackle.
Okay.
The sound effects on.
You know what we got to do? We have to get the sound effect where it's in Waterboy, where the guy's like visualize the attack, and then Adam Sandler's like no, and then the other guy's like no what, and then he's like you know what I'm talking about? That
yeah.
sound bite?
Gatorade sucks. Water sucks. Gatorade's better.
There you go. That's right.
Exactly.
All right.
We
got the first matchup here in the Oklahoma drill. We're doing some defensive alignment, getting some big guys on the line, going one-on-one, mano-a-mano. Mike, you are going to be in the corner of Kenny Clark. Nate, you are going to be in the corner of Larry Ogunjobi. Mike, tell us why Kenny Clark is the defensive line person you want to insert into your lineup this week over Larry Ogunjobi.
So, first of all, Kenny Clark is he really moves really smooth for an interior lineman. He has a 78.1 PFF grade in the pass rush. So there is definitely some big play upside. He has an 11.3% pressure rate, 4 hits and 25 hurries. He's also beating his blockers to the tune of a 22% win rate. And so that just means, again, he's beating his blockers in under 2.5 seconds, which is actually a pretty insane rate for someone playing on the interior. He's also getting tackles. He's got a 6.7% tackle rate, which sounds low, but for an interior lineman, that's actually pretty solid. And he's barely leaving the field. He's got an 82% usage rate, which is, again, insane for a defensive lineman. He's essentially on the field for every single down. He's averaging about 0.18 points per snap, and I'm really hoping the Packers continue to deploy him on the left side, which will put him over right guard Trey Smith, who is actually a better run blocker than he is a pass blocker. So with Clark, 105 of his defensive snaps have come on that left side over the right guard. So if they continue to deploy him on that side, I think that's definitely an advantageous matchup on the offensive line. Smith has actually allowed 4 sacks and 21 total quarterback pressures on Patrick Mahomes. So again, really, really solid, always a solid play in DT required leagues. So, for that reason, I think he's a pretty solid play this week against the Chiefs.
All right, Nate, your rebuttal with Larry Ogunjobi.
Yeah, there's no doubt Kenny Clark is an absolute beast. Like you mentioned, he's 4th in pressures. Like you touched on that 11% pressure rate. He's tied with Ogunjobi in one other area, though, is against the run, where they both have 18 run stops. Ogunjobi is looking like in a matchup where against the Browns as a whole, he's really settled into his own. I mean, he's 10th among defensive linemen in run play tackling. He's 10th in stops. He's 15th in the shortest average depth of tackle. So he's getting penetration. He's getting tackle behind the line of scrimmage more times than not. But at the same time, it's 1.8 yards per depth of tackle. So he's not letting anything get past the interior, which is common for a defensive tackle. But he's not having to run down a defender, which Ogunjobi and Kenny Clark both, like you mentioned with Kenny Clark, very fluid and good, mobility. The one thing that Ogunjobi's got a little bit of an advantage as far as positionally speaking is they have been lining him up even at defensive end. They've been moving him outside over the last couple weeks now. Of the last 2 weeks, he has 11 pressures, 3 sacks, 7 hurries, a 15% pressure rate. And right now, I don't want to say it, but I believe it's a revenge game narrative, Mike. Am I right? Maybe a little bad blood with Cleveland? Not really. He actually has nothing like that. But I think everybody loves a revenge game narrative. And so I'm going to throw that in because if Jorge's writing down point topics and we have to look at something, there you go. You can add that little thing to the repertoire. But we talked about the run game. When we look at this matchup, the one thing we have to focus on is who they're playing, situationally speaking. I believe that the Bengals have the superior. I think they have the edge in this matchup, but the Browns are not dumb. The Browns know that if they want to control this game, the one thing they have to do is keep Joe Burrow and company off the field. And the way to keep an offense off the field, run the ball. And let's be honest, their passing game probably needs weapons to do so. And I don't think with Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry both trending in the wrong direction that Donovan Peoples-Jones and Anthony Schwartz and company are going to do enough. So let's look at this Browns rushing attack. They're the most run-heavy team in the NFL. The majority of their work obviously used to go over the right-hand side over Jack Conklin's right tackle spot. Jack Conklin being out, now we have to worry a little bit about who comes in there. And so when you can position Ogunjobi everywhere across the field, you don't have to specifically worry about him lining up just on that right side. He can move over to the left side, get himself in a position to get some good tackle stop volume. And still, if the last 2 weeks are an indicator, he might be able just to get at Baker Mayfield as well.
You're not making this hard, you're making this easy, rather, gentlemen. I look at the narrative here. Which defense is more than likely going to be on the field the most? Well, there's no Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. I don't know how much stock you're putting into Jordan Love, milking the clock and dominating the time of possession. That is the offense of Green Bay. Therefore, I see Green Bay's defense being on the field a lot more than Kansas City's. And opportunity. It's all about opportunity when it comes to everything, whether it's offense, fantasy football, defensive fantasy football. It's all about opportunity. On the flip side, I actually like Cleveland's defense more than I do Green Bay's. They kept it relatively close with the Steelers last week in terms of shutting down a lot of the wide receiver options. Obviously, Najee Harris did his thing, so that didn't really help against the running game. But I feel Cleveland could put up a more competitive fight against the Bengals than Green Bay can against Kansas City in terms of the matchups. And so that being the case, the team that's probably going to be on the field the most is the Packers defense. So I'm going to go with Mike this week.
Hey, that was an uphill climb. There's no doubt. You shouldn't. Ogunjobi and Kenny Clark, I don't think at the beginning of the season would even be in a conversation with each other in terms of production.
And I was going to say, even though Conklin's out, Teller and Bitonio are all graded almost 90 in run block.
Yes.
And have allowed only 2 sacks between the two of them.
I intentionally left off Joel Bitonio because of that reason. I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna. But I was hoping, when you said, and I almost went into Kenny Clark playing both. He does play both left and right. He's been trending the other way because right now between Tooney and Creed Humphrey, Creed Humphrey's actually on pace to have the best rookie interior line season ever.
Yeah.
But
I think Humphrey has been a little shaky in protection also, but definitely better in run. But I think he's allowed a sack, but still. But yeah, if Teller and Bitonio go down, then oh my God, I don't even. Yeah. I was ready to trade Beckham for an offensive lineman on Sunday.
Well, we traded an offensive lineman. We got a third string tight end, special teamers. So I don't know if that's any good or not, but a doctor, mind you, too. So, but, you know. Oh, well. Well, congratulations, Mike. That being said, you now get to defend your title in a matchup against Jorge at the linebacker position. This was a recommended option from some of our fans on Twitter. I don't know about fans. That's probably a little egregious, but
we'll go with that. That's not, that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll work that out. Yeah.
And that is at Weasel World 12 DTS wants to know.
Love him.
Well, then he wants to know
Don't suck up,
David
Mike.
Long versus Ernest Jones. Mike, you went first last time. Jorge, I'll give you the floor.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
So Ernest Jones, look, Kenny Young goes to Denver.
Wait. Who are you going with, Jorge?
I'm with David Long.
Okay.
He's just
want to make sure.
Okay,
I'm
just paying respect to the player that I'm taking.
Got it.
on,
Okay,
right?
I'm like, oh God.
Yes.
No.
Then I'm just gonna say, hey, you know what? Start David Long. Go ahead, just do it. That's what I would.
Damn it! Don't you take this away from me. I prepared more than I have entire season. I'm stepping up my game for you two guys and everybody else out there. So let me at least have that. Look, Ernest Jones. Look, he played really well. There's talk about him in the offseason. Him being a potential guy who's going to step up on this Rams linebacking core. They get rid of Kenny Young. They send him to Denver. And look, with his first handful of meaningful snaps last week in week 8, 7 solos, 2 assists, half a sack, a pass defense, an INT, and Fantasy Pros scoring. He got you 23 fantasy points. That is a hell of a performance of an inside linebacker. I mean, this is a guy who can make tackles, who can make plays. Probably good against the run. It's a good thing he's taking on Derrick Henry this week. Oh, wait a second. That's right. Derrick Henry's not playing for the Titans anytime soon, is he? They're not really going to be able to be running. But who's taking space? Adrian Peterson, the 36-year-old Adrian Peterson. Not really sold on that. I think this is more of a passing game for Tennessee. Therefore, I'm not really seeing Ernest Jones' run-stopping potential kind of being worked or used a lot this week. Let's go to David Long. And you know what? When preparing for these Oklahoma drill matchups this week, I wanted to go with some pros and cons. That way I'm being kind of transparent with all you all out there and telling you why I think you should go for the player you're going through. And let's just get to the con right away. In all these profiles I'm going to give you about these players, I'm looking at the past 4 weeks. I don't like to do season long necessarily, just because that trends happen during the season. Things can be inflated left and right. Let's go over the last quarter of the season. Last quarter of the season, he is the LB1 in missed tackles. Not exactly great, Bob. Okay. One of the things about an inside linebacker, as I normally think of those guys as playing the run more often than not, I did not realize in weeks 5 through 8 that David Long has played 67% of the time in coverage, even though he lines up in the box a majority of the time. I don't know what that means. That is interesting. I don't know why they do it either, because he's the LB2 in yards after the catch. He's the LB12 in yards written per reception allowed in terms of giving up, not stopping. So why would I recommend this player who misses a lot of tackles and gives up a lot of plays? And it goes back to what Nate said a little bit earlier, is that sometimes you want somebody who gives up some receptions so they can get those tackles. You're looking back at let's see here. Since week 5 to now, no inside linebacker has had more solo tackles. That's pretty crazy. For an inside linebacker playing 67% of the time in coverage the past 4 weeks, he has the 5th highest run stopping percentage. Since week 5 also, he has a 19.6% tackle rate. And also since week 5, he has the LB8 in fantasy points per game. But let me give you the real stat that tells you why you want to start David Long this week, as well as probably going forward for the rest of the season. And that is, since week 5, no other linebacker has had a higher snap percentage than David Long. He's averaged 75% of the time of the snaps. No other linebacker. I'm not just talking about inside linebackers. I'm talking about like every linebacker. No one has even sniffed close to 75%. That means he's not going anywhere, whether he's missing tackles or not. The volume is going to be there. And going against the Rams team, and ironically, this is the stat that I think really sells it. Running back Darrell Henderson is the RB35 in elusiveness. So basically, when he gets the ball, whether it's out of the backfield or just running the ball, he's not making people miss. So as the Rams run the ball a lot, I feel like this is just putting fantasy points on a silver platter for David Long. So play him this week.
What did you say about the snaps?
75% over the past 4 weeks.
Nobody on Tennessee has played close.
Got it. I thought. Okay. Yep. I thought you said all linebackers. I'm like, well, no, that's impossible.
No. Just in Tennessee. Okay. His competition on the team to take away snaps from him is not there.
Got it. That makes more sense.
Yes, I don't think that would have been
that would not have been correct.
that would have been
an accurate statement. That would have been.
I would have been factually challenged at that point. Yes. No, you're not wrong.
Well, then we would have known that we can just make up stats as we want, willy-nilly. Larry Ogunjobi is the number 1 rated linebacker, safety, and defensive tackle in football right now. He has 37 sacks on the season.
Half of the field. Yeah.
He is. Mike, your rebuttal with one Ernest Jones.
So, one, thank you for rattling off all those stats for Ernest Jones. Kind of made my job a little bit easier. But the two things, though, that you mentioned, interceptions and sacks, big plays. So not reliant totally on tackles. Had a 73.5 PFF coverage grade. Mills had a 36.1 QBR when targeting him. That is going to keep him on the field, and that's going to keep him on the field every day of the week. I think Troy Reeder had like a 40 grade. So Jones at this point, he's going to be on the field for at least 90% of the snaps again, which is what he was on last week. Flies are on the field. Really, really good. His interception, he read the quarterback perfectly, read the eyes in coverage, got the pick. So, one, he's got big play upside. He's going to stay on the field in coverage. So whether that's going to be Ferkser or even a slot receiver or even Jeremy McNichols, he's going to be in play to make some plays in coverage, potentially have some big plays. Rams also added Von Miller. Now they have Von Miller, Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd. So now they have 3 guys that offensive lines have to pay attention to. When you're paying attention to all those guys, there's going to be some holes opening up. Last week, Ernest Jones had 8 pass rush snaps, generated 2 quarterback pressures, including a half sack and a hit. So that also is going to give him his big play ability. Now, Titans are not going to abandon the run at all. Are they going to run Adrian Peterson 20 times? Probably not. Are they going to run him 10 to 15 times? Potentially. They run about 100. They've run 176 plays to the left or to the middle. And in that run game, that's basically where Jones is aligning up. He's had 50 of his total defensive snaps either on the right side or on the middle. So he's going to be there. And if the Rams are going to continue to run out one linebacker with extra DBs, Ernest Jones is going to be the only inside linebacker on the field. Yeah, there's going to be Taylor Rapp, Jordan Fuller, but basically Ernest Jones is essentially the only linebacker that's on the field. Again, no competition for tackles. So for me, Ernest Jones has a really good skill set, very versatile, and he is, at least from that one game sample size, I know it's only one game, but he just brings a all-around skill set where he can contribute tackles, and he'll be able to get those big plays with sacks and interceptions. So we're going to probably see definitely a different offense, but for the most part, I don't think the upside goes away, and I still think he has the upside to be an LB2 this week. So I really like Jones. I loved him coming in, and I like him this week.
So the hardest thing about trying to determine, a winner, if there's a winner, there's no loser in this argument. I can tell you both made amazing cases. That the question is, am I looking for an evaluation of a floor, or am I looking for an evaluation of the ceiling? I don't know that answer. It was kind of a hypothetical to myself. I'm trying to decide that the entire time. Do I look for the reason to make that splash play, which in this case I would think would be Ernest Jones, just based on pure if the volume is like, points per snap or points per opportunity, I think I would lean Ernest Jones's way. But overall total safety points, I don't mean the position safety, but I mean, what's my floor going to be? I look David Long's direction. One area that I'm inclined to be concerned about, but I don't want to ever interject and puts a narrative that I don't know is true or not. My concern a little bit is that if Jeffrey Simmons' injury is not practicing is something more than a Veterans Day, if he doesn't play, does that mean that David Long's going to see even more, the offensive linemen getting to that second level that Jeffrey Simmons is not going to be able to eat up? Again, Jorge, I'm not going to interject and ruin your wonderful argument based off of something that I'm thinking. And I think you did bring it, Jorge. I'm going to give you the win, not because I think that I don't think Ernest Jones is capable of having a better week, but I believe that you touched on a lot of the things that I would have touched on. I'm not saying, hey, you had to be like me, but I think it was
to the judge. There you go.
No, it was a good argument. I think that you did a really good job, and you made sure to accentuate that it was an uphill battle for Mike. He knew that. He knew Ernest Jones. He has David Long probably 8 or 10 spots higher, I'm guessing, in his rankings.
Jorge needed a win bad. Okay, that's what this is. I needed a win. But David Long is a good play. Ernest Jones, if he does it again this week, who knows? Maybe we start talking more about him more consistently.
Oh, absolutely. I think, yeah. It was my waiver wire pick up at linebacker, one of them at least. But actually, both these, Davion Taylor and that. All right, let's see.
So we got the defensive back. Okay.
We do. I'm just getting everything there. So in the final, Mike, you as judge get to determine the winner here in the battle of the slot corner matchups between Jorge's Taryn Johnson of the Buffalo Bills against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I will be on the side of Elijah Molden against the Los Angeles Rams. Jorge, I'll let you start off with Taryn Johnson.
Sure. So this is a stat that may or may not be important. In weeks 5 through 8, Taryn Johnson has missed 0% of his tackle opportunities. So he's tackling everything in sight, which I hear is important when you want to calculate fantasy points. He has the fourth most slot coverage snaps in the NFL during that time frame. He is the 5th most targeted slot cornerback in the NFL during that time frame. He's averaging in Fantasy Pros IDP scoring 10.3 fantasy points per game. The Jaguars are allowing 51.1 points per game to the cornerback position. Let's think about this. Slot corners, it probably helps if the wide receiver that they're guarding is targeted early and often. And it just so happens, last week we saw Jamal Agnew really kind of take over, by a few receptions and a few targets here, the predominant pass catching role for the Jacksonville Jaguars. In weeks 5 through 8, he is the wide receiver 9 overall in the NFL in slot targets. He has a pretty decent reception percentage of 87.5, which means, okay, well, a quarterback likes throwing to him because he catches the ball a lot. He's the wide receiver 8 in yards after the catch from the slot. What's really interesting here is the average depth of tackle and average depth of target. So Jamal Agnew's average depth of target is 5.5 yards. Taryn Johnson's average depth of tackle is 6.4 yards. And again, this is from weeks 5 through 8. That I think is really, really important. This is the thing. Look, there's nobody scaring you at the other wide receiver positions. Anyone going against Tre'Davious White, I don't think you can, bank on. The only competition is Levi Wallace, the left cornerback, because he's going against Laviska Shenault. Oh, wait a second. Laviska Shenault didn't even start last week, or at least he didn't get the majority of snaps last week. Taryn Johnson did. Laviska Shenault, if he does start this week, and he is featured more in this game, has the 5th highest drop rate. So you don't need to worry about any cornerback. You don't have to worry about Levi Wallace having a sneaky breakout game because the Laviska Shenault is going to drop the ball anyway, so you don't have to worry about passes defense there. So give me Taryn Johnson. I don't really see a lot of cons in this matchup this week. Jacksonville is going to have to move the ball a lot. They have an ailing James Robinson, and if Carlos Hyde's there, I don't think they're going to lean on Carlos Hyde to carry the game. They're going to want to get the ball out, and Lawrence is going to go for the guy that he's been the most confident in over the past 5 weeks, and that's Jamal Agnew, which means Taryn Johnson is going to get some work this week.
That is a definite possibility that they might try to look Taryn Johnson's way because he's a less than adequate slot corner. Oh, he's not? So he has a 50% completion rate allowed. That's really good. So, but he's not supposed to be good. So he's going to get targeted. 54% of the routes targeted have been tight coverage. So granted, don't get me wrong, Trevor Lawrence is a rookie. Trevor Lawrence might just throw into tight coverage, but why? Why continue to pepper an area of a Jamal Agnew? And don't get me wrong, a 2-week sample size is all you need to know about an All-Pro and a future Hall of Famer. I'm assuming his bust is getting made right now as we speak.
It is actually. How did you know that?
I saw that. It is getting made.
Are you seeing it getting forward? Because you should have, because it's happening. Yeah.
There's a chance, though, that might look like Jamal Agnew, when in reality it's probably Cooper Kupp. And let's be honest, Cooper Kupp is the number one. There's no question about Jamal Agnew versus Laviska versus Marvin Jones versus anybody else. In LA, we know it's Robert Woods can have an impact, but it's Cooper Kupp. And here, this is not a promising matchup for the Titans against the Rams. I mean, you're out Derrick Henry, you're out Jeff. I'm going to make the narrative that Jeffrey Simmons is out. Makes it seem better. We don't know if he is or not, but you get the idea. The defense as a whole is reeling. If there's any shining spot whatsoever, it's been Elijah Molden. And Elijah Molden, it took him till week 6 to take this starting slot corner role and just and run with it. And since then, mind you, he started in 3 games now. In that time, he has had enough tackles to be already 7th on the team in total tackles in only 3 weeks. He had a pick 6 last week, was super impactful. Against the Rams, here's the thing. He might be needed in all phases. The Rams very easily could run. And as you mentioned, Darrell Henderson is not the most elusive, so we don't have to worry about missed tackles by Elijah Molden, who, he doesn't have any. He doesn't miss tackles. And this is, I think you talked on this, his average depth of tackles, 5.5 yards. So the nice thing is that he's getting it done even with a little bit of run. So, as a slot corner, he's still making every tackle possible. He's the 8th most targeted corner in that time as well. He has 1 pass breakup. And with Christian Fulton returning, that's going to essentially narrow that field down just a little bit. I'm not saying Christian Fulton's the end-all, be-all, but Christian Fulton has been an above-average corner. And when he returns, I don't want to take away one side, but I believe what it's going to do is it's going to funnel even more direction towards Cooper Kupp. And Elijah Molden is not a bad corner. He just isn't a great corner. And that's the kind of conversation that we have to have is, would you rather look at, Trevor Lawrence and have to fit it into a tight window and hope that Taryn Johnson's making the tackles in a game that's most likely not going to be on the ground because there's no James Robinson. Carlos Hyde's not going to be too heavily involved. Or focus on the fact that, let's be honest, Elijah Molden's going to allow you to catch the ball. He's going to do that. It's fine. But then he's going to make the tackle, and that's heavy volume of Cooper Kupp. Elijah Molden for the win.
So just so we're clear, the second most wide receiver in yards after the catch, one of the most elusive wide receivers in the NFL is somehow going to get tackled early and often by Elijah Molden. I just wanted to clarify that's your stance.
There's a 100% chance that happens. At least, I'm going to say 4 tackles just to Cooper Kupp alone.
Okay.
Keep in mind, this doesn't have to be a pass-heavy game. If you're the Rams,
that doesn't help your case then. If that's
you may want to just stop talking.
Why? He's excellent in run stopping. Elijah Molden against the run is actually one of the attributes that really helps his case just as much against Taryn Johnson. Because if you look at the run defense
I'm looking. All right.
Did you narrow it down though to the last 3 weeks when he's actually been on the field?
I will do that.
Are you going to do your whole
I will do
sample
that.
size?
I will do that. It's not sample. It's 3 weeks he's on the field. That's what I'm doing. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let me make my settings here. Okay.
And then you're going to go to, he plays for the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah. Does he? I didn't put that together. That's interesting. All right. So let me just go here, do some stuff here. Tennessee Titans. Okay.
And you see 4 run stops versus.
I see a D average PFF grade. I see a, let's see here. He hasn't missed any tackles, but he's only had 4 in 3 games.
Which is the same number as Taryn Johnson.
Okay. All right. Ooh,
who hasn't missed tackle.
How about that? Okay. All right. Enough. Mike, who won that one?
Boy.
The feistiness has picked up as the season has gone on.
It's gotten a little chippy. Oh God.
We need Oklahoma Doug on the show to help break the tension sometimes. I have a feeling we'll get him on the show.
I think in the words of Lieutenant Gamble from the other guys, Jorge, you were outgunned and you were outmanned against the Rams offense. But you know what? I think I'm going to give it to you, Jorge.
Really? I mean,
I think Taryn Johnson, I think I think Cup is just like you said, I think he's just a little bit more elusive. Agnew is just, he's a guy and, he catches the ball and he's there. And I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm just going to, I think I'm going to side with you on this one, Jorge. I think I'm going to side with Taryn Johnson.
Hold on. I just want to wait for this YouTube video to load really quickly. 15 seconds. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Okay. Well, that
internet.
That's 10 seconds. Hold on.
What, do you have my internet again? Yeah, my internet.
Yeah.
No. Well, it's YouTube. It's the ad. I don't have ad-free YouTube, which is it's annoying the hell out of me. Hold on. Can you all hear the person talking?
Your internet is as bad as Taryn Johnson is over the last 3 weeks in run stopping, where he grades out as a 49 versus Elijah Molden's 70. Right. Mind you.
Just waiting for the streaming. Come on. Oh, to joy. Let's go. Come on. All right.
Speaking of busts of the week now. Good segue, Jorge. Thank you very much. Mike.
Yep.
Why don't you go ahead and give us your bust of the week at defensive line?
That is not what I wanted to do.
So, he probably counts as, depending on your league, he can count as a linebacker or a defensive lineman or an edge rusher. So I think this week's bust is going to be Harold Landry.
Ooh, really?
Kind of a tougher matchup. Against the Rams offensive line. He should see some Joseph Noteboom, who's kind of a newer starter on left tackle. He had a 70 pass blocking grade last week in 36 pass rush snaps, allowed 0 pressures in his time there. So that isn't too bad. The guy opposite him, if he lines up over Rob Havenstein, he has only allowed 1 sack and 9 total pressures over 299 pass block snaps. So both of these guys have been basically walls. Stafford has been really good getting the ball out quick, has had solid protection around him. So Harold Landry has had pretty much a sack in every single game this week. And I think his floor and ceiling come crashing down this week, and he is my bust of the week.
You heard it here first. Harold Landry, 6 tackles, 4 sacks, and a forced fumble and an interception return for a touchdown. Congratulations, Harold Landry. You are the AFC Defensive Player of the Week. I hope that that's not the case. I hope it is the case, actually, because I have Harold Landry, and I'd like to see him do well. But honestly speaking, that makes perfect sense. My bust at linebacker is Kazir White. the Chargers against the Eagles. Yes, the Chargers are playing the Eagles, not the Bills versus the Eagles, as I mentioned earlier. But opposite, Philly doesn't concede a ton of points to the linebacker position at all. Everything that they do is directed towards the edges. And the Chargers have pretty much conceded the fact that they're going to allow teams to run on them. They're going to give up the rushing. Look at Damian Harris did to them. And they're not going to get beat in the air. That's fine. It would be great. And if, Kazir White was in position to get heavy tackle volume. But again, like I said, it's not Philly's MO. They go to the edges. And if you look back since this entire season, what has a middle linebacker done against Philly? And in week 1, the only time there was significant production, Deion Jones had 20 points in the IDP 1-2-3 scoring and even fewer in standard. But Fred Warner had 17. LVE and Jalen Smith, which is probably not the greatest sample, but you get the idea, 7 points. Anthony Hitchens had 14. Carter in Carolina had 8. Devin White only had 13 points in week 6. Denzel Perryman had 8 points. And then in week 8, last week against Detroit, Derek Barnes had a decent game, but nothing to write home about. Kazir White has not been grading out wonderfully over the last couple weeks in run defense. He grades as a 32.4. He does have 7 tackles in run stopping over that time, but I'm moving Kazir White down into my LB, really almost LB4 territory right now on week 9. Jorge, we got defensive back.
So I want to go with a guy that to this day, it still amazes me that he's still the starting strong safety for the Atlanta Falcons. I could have swore Richie Grant would have seized this opportunity at this point. I'm talking about Eric Harris going against the Saints. The Saints are allowing the 31st most, which is not awesome, fantasy points per game to the safety position. The only game that Harris has missed is week 5 versus the Jets, and he's been pretty consistent in tackle volume. It's getting you basically 6 or 7 tackles each week. But I don't know. I don't see this offense for the Saints, especially if Taysom Hill comes back, and I don't know if that's necessarily a guarantee there. I don't know if he's going to be somebody that is going to make this offense more susceptible to tackle volume for Harris. So downgrade him in your lineups this week.
Nice. So we have pretty much 3 guys that are destined to finish awesome. Move those guys high up in your rankings. Kazir White's the defensive back 2 now on the week with my touch of gold, the Midas touch, unfortunately. Maybe we'll see. You never know. I got a Trevon Diggs hit last week. I just need to make sure I adjust. But that'll wrap up, like you guys mentioned. I don't want to say feisty. I think involved. Good conversation and good preparation is going to lead to opposing views, and we're all competitive.
That's good. That gives,
and that's
people,
what you want.
That's what people want to hear. They want to obviously they want to make their own informed decisions, and I think we did a good job of giving them things to be informed about.
I agree. And if you have any questions, you want to go on and say why everybody's been wrong and appointing who won and who didn't. Obviously, you can go to at Nate Markham and let me know about how I screwed up really bad. Or you can reach Jorge at Jorge B. Edwards, or you can go talk to Mike at Mike_Wohler.
Tell me how awesome I am, and you might get a free sub. So,
Subway sandwich from Jersey Mike's.
I love Jersey Mike's.
All right. You heard it here first. Free Jersey Mike's courtesy of 4for4 football and Mike Wohler.
Although if you went Jimmy John's, I wouldn't hate it too, because their bread smells delicious whenever they're making it. So, yeah. Anywho, Mike, thanks for joining us again this week. Love having you. Check out all the stuff, folks, at 4for4.com. One of the IDP stalwarts here in the internet land, and he's fantastic. So thanks again for joining us, Mike. And Nate, I believe you entered the week officially in the ECR for IDP over at Fantasy Pros, and you finished in the top 10 again this week, this time for real. Congratulations. Fantastic job there. So great stuff. Again, head over to fantasyframes.com, check out our IDP rankings, check out Nate's IDP articles, getting it ready for each and every week, heading into now week 9 of the fantasy football season. So for Mike, for Nate, I'm Jorge. Good luck this week, folks.